Boss, are you telling us you got no more fight left in you?
Oh, that's not gonna work, Sid.
What, you can't take a challenge?
And I'm not 10 years old, and you are not Sister Mary Damien screaming at me from the sidelines.
All right, you're your age now, and you're the PC, and they're stringing up a noose for one of your men. You're just gonna let them...
Please, shaming me's not gonna work either.
I would like to say something. As a woman, that is the biggest load of crap that I have ever heard. You're just gonna let this broad push you out the door.
This broad happens to be mayor of New York City.
So what? That's all you've got? I don't think the mayor likes me? Who the hell do you think you're talking to here?
Mr. Selleck, thanks so much for being here.
Tom.
Tom, we'll go with Tom, okay.
And I refuse to refer to myself in the third person.
Okay, I guess good for you.
Him.
Congratulations, 8th season premiering tonight on CBS, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal for us. 8 years of any show is a real achievement. 8 years of a show that I think keeps getting better and is incidentally in its audience growing. That's really rare, so we're blessed. I love the characters, and just as importantly, I love the actors who play them. So there's two families going on at family dinner. There's the characters and the actors. So the actors are catching up with each other every week.
That's a hugely important part of a show like this as well, which is sort of, if you're going to go 8 seasons, loving the people that you're around and that you're working with.
Shows aren't always that way. I mean, I guested on a lot of shows. I was 35 when I got Magnum, so you can walk on a lot of shows. Was that for 35 or was that for Magnum? Somebody's 35 out there, I know. It just, you work on a lot of shows where you can kind of have to walk on eggshells, and hopefully you say to yourself, boy, if I ever get my own show, I'm not going to make it like that. And on Blue Bloods and on Magnum, we got a bunch of people who said that to themselves and come to work with a happy face on, so it's a joy.
I want to talk about Blue Bloods, about Magnum. I know that you're walking into an episode right now that is very special to you, but I want to ask a big question for you first, a big question that I think a lot of people want to know. What does the mustache mean to you?
It meant a job on Blue Bloods. Well, the director said, you know, maybe you ought to play this guy without a mustache. I said, sure. I was born that way, you know, and I do work without it.
Tom Selleck was born with a mustache.
Yes. No, I would recommend In and Out as clear evidence that I have an upper lip. But Leonard Goldberg, who created the show, basically said, well, let me check with CBS. And the word came down, now Tom has a mustache. I said, because I like some accuracy in characters, I said, can a police commissioner have one? And the verdict on that was yes. So, police commissioner is actually a civilian employee in New York City. If you were a cop, as Frank was, you had to resign to become a civilian head of the NYPD. And
that's for a certain amount of, to protect a certain amount of oversight, right?
I think it's oversight. I think it's a tradition. Civilian control of some of our institutions. So I don't know the why of it. I just wanted to get the why of it right.
Right, absolutely. One more question about the stash. When did you?
This is a common occurrence.
Of course. When did you first know that it had caught on, and what did you feel when it caught on? Were you like, oh no, I'm going to be stuck with this mustache for a long time, or did you love it?
Actually, I don't know. I didn't know it was about a mustache, so I was thinking character. I don't know. After Magnum, I think I went, oh my gosh, I'm gonna live with mustache questions the rest of my life.
Hello.
But I didn't think of it till then. It wasn't one thing or another. Most of the time I got hired, They said the mustache is okay, but you got to shave it off for the job. So I was born without it and prepared to work without it, and have done a ton of work without it.
So, like I said, you are moving into a very special episode number this week, right? Can you talk about that?
I can. You know, I did Magnum went for 8 seasons. I did 163 hours. Very proud of it. Very proud of Magnum for, thank you. Magnum started in 1980, and the subject of Vietnam, which is maybe some of us have seen the Ken Burns documentary going on, the subject was death. And Don Belisario and I fought to make that very much a part of that character's life on the serious side of Magnum. I did 163 hours, and we ended up in the Smithsonian Institution as the first show that really recognized Vietnam veterans in a positive light, which is important to me because we treat our veterans a lot differently now than we did in 1980. And to be part of that legacy is a really big deal. We don't blame our veterans anymore for the mission that somebody sent them on. And that wasn't the case in 1980. Long story short, I am now doing episode 163 of Blue Bloods. See, I don't want to get this. This gets me, largely because of Magnum. It's a reflective time for me, and especially watching the documentary that was. I was in the Army from 1967 to 73. That's kind of being in the middle of the time we were in the heart of the beast. So it's very reflective. Doing this, it's kind of I've just tied Magnum with Blue Bloods. We're going to go on. Magnum was never canceled. Magnum, God knows how many episodes we could have done. We went off the #1 show on the air. So
Is that
I've
true?
been very lucky. Oh yeah.
You guys went off as the #1 show?
Oh yeah.
So what happened? You guys didn't want to do it anymore?
No, I had given the show an extra year. I'd done the #1 movie in the world. I was tired from it because I was doing 90-hour weeks for 8 years. I wasn't tired of it. So it was time. What a nice way to go off. What a nice way to pay homage to the show that it was still so popular.
Oh my God, you could bring it back.
Yes, I could.
You could be on vacation, and like a cop could come to you and need your help. You could be a consultant.
I don't want
be
to
in the
be a
action
consultant.
if you do it.
Like the character's very important to me for a lot of reasons. For that reason, when you don't get a regular job till you're 35, it was a pretty cool thing to think it can happen twice. It makes me really fortunate. That's rare in people's careers. Most careers are shorter than that. It may not be a matter of talent. It's just the way things fall. So I'm just kind of lucky.
It's wonderful that you have this reflection right now in this. You remember Magnum PI like this because Hollywood lore is that you passed on Indiana Jones for Magnum PI, right?
No, I'm not that stupid.
I did not mean to imply
after
that.
I did the pilot for Magnum, I tested for Indiana Jones and got the job. Stephen and George, my newest pals at the time, offered me the job, and I said, well, I've done this pilot. And they said, well, thanks for telling us. Most actors wouldn't do that, but we got cards to play with CBS. And turned out CBS wouldn't let me do it. They held the offer out for about a month. Harrison Ford hates to hear this. And Harrison, this is your role, and you're indelible in it. So it's just an interesting story. But yeah, I mean, look, I signed a deal for Magnum. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I'm proud that I lived up to my contract. Some people said, you gotta get in the car and drive into a brick wall and get injured and get out of Magnum and do this. And I said, I gotta look my mom and dad in the eye, and we don't do that. So I did Magnum. It's not so bad, is it?
No, not at all. And that's what I mean. I mean, you did the right thing, and karma really came around for you because Magnum turned out to be this 8 years running. It had a substantial effect on you emotionally in terms of the character that you got to play.
Yeah, absolutely.
When you finished Magnum, what kind of stuff did you want to do afterwards?
Well, Magnum was interesting. At the time Magnum started, the one thing I said when I couldn't do Indiana Jones was, oh, I guess I'm going to be a TV actor. Well, because things were pretty segregated. If you did one, there were actors who occasionally went from success in television and later had a feature career, but nobody was trying to do both at once. And I was lucky enough to start getting offered motion pictures while I was doing Magnum. I think it made the jury a little tougher because they go, well, this shouldn't happen. TV people can't be in movies. Nowadays, they finance movies on people's TV names. So
Everything was
it was a changing world. But, you know, I did 3 very successful movies, but they were compared to, they all made significant money, but they were compared to the success of Magnum, so they said, well, this is disappointing. But then in the 5th year of Magnum, I did 3 Men and a Baby, which was the #1 movie in the world, and so I had multiple careers, and that was part of the reason that it was time to just look at all the things I could do. And the other thing I did was I married in my last year of Magnum to my wife, Jilly, and I don't think with the work I was doing in Magnum all those years that a marriage could probably survive. So I made some serious commitments to stay home a little more. Out-of-work actors, when they get work, you don't want to turn anything down. And that's almost a disease. So you say, well, I got to do this and I got to do that. Eventually you realize you're not spending any time at home. So a couple things happened, and that I could afford, literally, to change my life a little bit.
When did you start writing and producing your own work as well?
I had a hand in quite a few Westerns I started producing. It was very intimidating. Louis L'Amour was a friend of mine. I did a miniseries in the late 70s called The Sackets, which is how I met Louis. Louis had passed on. I got a chance to adapt him in a movie called Crossfire Trail, which for about 20 years was the highest rated movie in the history of cable television. But I wanted to do Louis justice. I think we did. I also had to, so I participated in it and rewrote, as a producer can, executive producer. I was also going to star, obviously. And then I had to adapt Elmore Leonard in a Western, Last Stand at Sabre River. And these are big names and guys I respect. So how I got in writing was to be scared to death and say, you better do this right. And then I had to adapt in a movie called Monty Walsh, which I'm very proud of, Jack Schaefer, who wrote Shane. So adapting those writers was a bit of a baptism in fire, but I also had a big hand in the writing when I started the Jesse Stone series. Now I'm having to adapt Robert Parker. Robert B. Parker is a great writer. He's a little like Elmore Leonard. Unlike a lot of writers, the dialogue Robert Parker writes in his books, you can lift right out and put on the screen. Some writers of literature don't write cinematically. He does, Elmore Leonard does. So obviously I wanted to do Bob Parker justice. As time went on, we ran out of books that would make movies, and Bob was very understanding. And the writers that they were on the network list that we could afford, I was given complete control of the Jesse Stone series. We've done 9 movies.
You've done a lot of movies.
Yeah.
And you have another one coming down the pike, right?
Yeah, number 10. They're on Hallmark Movie Mystery Channel now, but I was given complete creative control, and I would tell the writers, they want to be on the network's list. But if the network executive, and I got nothing against networks, they give me jobs, but if they executive produce every project, then all the projects are going to have a sameness. So I kept saying, they said, will you do a movie for us? And I said, you know, to be honest, please don't be offended, but I don't like your television movies. You have every right to make them, and God bless you that they're succeeding. But to give you an idea, the first Jesse Stone aired in between other movies of the week, and we aired in between Spring Break, Shark Attack, and Category 7 End of the World. That's not Jesse Stone, for those of you who've seen it. So gradually, we were rewriting, Michael Bramman and I, the writers we hired from page one. And then we took the big leap. And I don't know how many I've written now with Michael, but 4 or 5, something like that. And I'm very proud of it, and proud of the fact I'm not a very good, for you writers out there, I'm not real good at staring at a blank page. But it's a discipline you have to have. I'm staring at a blank page right now to write the 10th Jesse Stone.
How do you usually procrastinate when you're staring at the blank page?
Well, it's easy to procrastinate right now because I got blue bloods, and the only way I can write is kind of walk. Frank Reagan is told from Frank Reagan's point of view. Jesse Stone movies completely are told from his point of view. You walk in his shoes. So, but I got to walk in his shoes while I'm playing Frank Reagan, and that's a little stifling at the moment.
So you need
but maybe it's this whole Vietnam thing and Magnum thing and Blue Bloods thing. I don't know.
It's an interesting. How often do you find yourself in moments of reflection like this?
Not often.
Yeah.
Frankly, watching. I was in the infantry in the National Guard. What you see in that documentary, that's what I was trained to do. And I had ordered, when I got out of active duty to come home from my reserve duty, I was activated for Vietnam. I packed my bags and they changed their orders. So I was that close to going. In a position in an infantry platoon that's very high on the snipers list. So I just did that stuff, you know. And you moved on, and I did my duty to my country and fulfilled my obligation. I look at this thing now. At the time I was in, and I go, if somebody's signature on a piece of paper didn't change my unit's orders, I don't think I'd be around. I didn't reflect that way then. The same thing about work. You work, you fail, you learn, and you move on. And I'm doing a lot more reflection right now. I think it's just all kind of come together at once.
It's something that comes after a fair amount of, for lack of a better word, I think, sort of success and comfort. You get to now take a moment and remember everything that went into a life that you built.
Yeah.
Actively or
and
passively.
you get to, hopefully you get to a point where you go, you know, I've tried to do the right thing. I screwed up, but you get, at my age, you know, the most important thing to me is not spit on my life and what I've done. Because not all the time, but 90% of the time I'm proud of what I've done. Did I fail? Sure. Did it not turn out right? Was it misperceived? All that stuff doesn't matter as long as you can look in the mirror. So at 72, you want to be able to look in the mirror.
Absolutely, 100%. You know, earlier in the interview, you had mentioned one of the roles that you took where you shaved the mustache off, and this is not a mustache question, so.
It's an indirect mustache question.
It is not, sir. And it was for the movie In and Out, which is a wonderful comedy in the mid-'90s.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a wonderful movie.
And it is also, I think, one of the first time that we saw a mainstream character, an LGBT character, in a mainstream movie. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what made you want to take that role at that time? And did
Well,
you see a significance or an importance? When you
I had been for a long time. I was doing leads in movies and playing leads, and I think my frustration was I'm an actor. I'm a trained actor, and while leads are incredibly challenging, I love the challenge of ensemble work, but it seemed like the message out there was I was doing vehicles for myself. Well, That's fine. I don't think you can do a movie just to prove something. You see actors do that all the time, but you know what? That may mean something to the actor, but nobody goes to see it. So you got to know what's in their wheelhouse as well as your wheelhouse. So it's kind of like Friends. When I was offered Friends, all the professional advice I got was, "Oh, don't do that." From my people, as they call it. And I was very close to someone. They said, "Oh, they'll say you're crawling back to television." And I said, "You know, why? Why wouldn't I do it? I haven't done a sitcom since Taxi, and it scares me. Good parts should scare you." Yeah. And In and Out came along. Was there a challenge there? Did I want to play it because the character was gay? Frankly, no. I wanted to be in an ensemble, and if you know that movie, and you see the ensemble Frank Oz and Scott Rudin put together. I mean, I don't want to go down the list, but I'll leave somebody off. That was just a fine group of actors, and I was the last one to cast. So what was the risk? Why wouldn't I do that? And then I'm going, shoot, obviously I've never played a gay character. How do I play a gay character? Well, I did that for about a week. And wait a minute, I wouldn't say, how do I play a heterosexual character? How do I do this? I said, so the question became, how do I play a less than ethical entertainment reporter who's scared to death about his career? And he'll say and do almost anything to keep it going. And I said, I can play that guy. And then I made choices, obviously, for the character in those areas, but that was not like a mission. I think that movie says a lot of very important things because Scott Rudin and Frank Oz were smart enough not to hit people over the head with a hammer. They said, we got to make people laugh. In my opinion, it's about as controversial as Some Like It Hot. It's just a wonderful movie.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's time for questions from the audience. Who has a question right here?
Hi, I'm asking this question for.
Is this a mustache question?
No.
Well, I'm wondering because
we have already something in common. I'm asking this question for my wife who can't be here today because it was her birthday yesterday.
I'm old. I can't quite hear you.
Oh, I'm asking this question on behalf of my wife who can't be here because it was her birthday yesterday. Basically, what is it that you think draws you to taking police-oriented roles in your career?
Offers. I've played, I haven't, look, Magnum wasn't a cop. Magnum didn't even have a business card for private investigator. He was basically a Navy SEAL who said one day I woke up and I was 33 and realized I'd never been 23, and he checked out responsibly. He was the least responsible member of that show. So is Frank Reagan a cop? Absolutely, and he is to play a character that's supposed to be iconic among his people. That's very intimidating. But I don't gravitate to any one kind of role. I don't have a list of what I wanted to play. I talked about getting scared when you play parts. Well, I've now played something like Quigley Down Under, which is a movie I'm very proud of. You know, you play a part, you get offered a part that John Wayne would be better in. That's scary. Or Jimmy Stewart. And in some ways, that's who you're casting in your head, and they want me. I've been asked now to play a lot of characters who are iconic. I don't consider me, and I won't refer to me in the third person, iconic. That's a result on an audience. You can't play iconic just because, like you can't, I played a presidential nominee, the Democratic nominee, by the way. You can't play presidential. You can't play mayoral. You can't play commissionery. So the cop thing, I don't know. It's how you're perceived. What attracted me to Blue Bloods wasn't that it was a cop show in the procedural sense, although we have a procedural element more in Donnie's world than my character's world. But what I saw really was a character-driven show at a time in episodic network television where that's a rarity. And that's where I've always leaned towards, whether they're cops or whatever, is who's this person and what's the character about.
You've been you've talked about being a conservative in Hollywood, right?
Not in 10 years.
Oh, really?
I'm out of the game.
Out of the game.
Yeah.
Out of the game.
Oh, yeah.
I was just asking. You've talked about this period of reflection that you're in, and I'm wondering if
Doesn't
you've
involve
been,
that.
Really?
I didn't have a dog in the last hunt.
Good for you.
No comment. I just found it's counterproductive. You don't do any good. Yeah, I still vote. Kind of become my business. I've just seen it. I'm in an ensemble show. I like to think of myself as an ethical person. You can toot your own horn all the time. I got it. I do right now. But there's 7 or 8 actors in Blue Bloods, all with diverse opinions, all fall on different sides of different issues, and all of our futures are at stake. So I just decided quite a long time ago, and you can check me on it, that why do I want to toot my own horn and piss off half the country?
Absolutely. I think
I'm an entertainer.
Next question.
Hi, Tom. So I was wondering, do you?
This isn't a mustache question.
No, not today. No.
How are you with facial hair? I want to ask a mustache question.
Why don't you have a mustache? No.
I've never had a mustache.
You thought about having a mustache?
I have, yeah. My dad had one.
You didn't know we were going to put you on the spot, did you?
So
What about like a soul patch? No.
maybe, yeah. Anyway, I was wondering, have you ever talked with people in the police department or NYPD or for feedback or just to
Yes.
for research on your character to get it more
Yeah,
authentic?
although the television business is, I had to play General Eisenhower in a movie I'm very proud of about the lead up to D-Day, and I knew people might be curious about it because when they sent me the script, I said, "What are they thinking?" You know, and I did a real good job, but I'm happy to say, but. Those things are intimidating. I had 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks to become General Eisenhower, and most of that time was spent going bald, and I'm not truly very gray. I had to bleach my hair gray and all sorts of things, and those are physical things where you get in the ballpark, but how do I play the commander of the largest army in the history of the world before D-Day? Same thing with the commissioner. I had about 2 weeks. I did see Bill Bratton, who was former commissioner at that time before his second term, in a restaurant. You don't interrupt people in the public guy's dinner. That would be a good rule for everybody. So I sent him a note. I said, give this to the commissioner on the way out. And he helped me a lot. Commissioner Kelly at the time came to our premiere and said he liked our show, but he's the New York City Police Commissioner with 35,000 cops to take care of. He didn't have the time. Bill Bratton made the time. I read his book, Turnaround, which I think is worth reading in terms of what happened to New York City, in terms of the safety of citizens. But the other thing I wanted to play, and we're not doing a police commercial on Blue Bloods. We try very hard to show some balance. We've done plenty of shows about corrupt cops, about cops who make mistakes. It's about the people, and so it was the trick after that. After finding out like I found out that the commissioner isn't a cop. Can't be a cop anymore, so your character, who was chief of department, would have had to resign. My character came up through the ranks. So I found out those things, talking to a guy who's been there and ended up going back there is useful for an actor because I don't know, I'm not conscious of it, but you pick up stuff without realizing, without going, no, wait, hold that, say that again. You don't do that to people, but you get a kind of climatic effect of what a job like that does to and for a person. And then I just wanted to make him human and flawed. He's not a very good guy to work for. He yells at his people, the people closest to him, but people know he cares. He tries to be fair, but he screws that up. He's still a dad, even though his kids are fully grown. So all those things become important, but the police aspect was real important to get that right.
I think we have time for one more question right here.
Yes, I'd like to know, out of all the roles and the characters that you played, which was your favorite?
I don't have a favorite. I've got ones that stick out for different reasons. I love Quigley Down Under. I love Westerns. I love Monty Walsh because it was not a movie about a gunman or a sheriff. It was about a cowboy at the end of the era of the Western cowboy whose primary thought and role in life was literally to stand athwart history yelling, stop. 3 Men and a Baby kind of changed my life because all the people who said, well, we loved Magnum, but he can't make it in movies, could kind of not deny that we did pretty well. That movie was the #1 movie in the world. And a good movie. And a good comedy. And people don't realize that was the success of Friends. Comedies, it's easier to make people laugh when you can make them cry also. It's easy to make people cry when you can make them laugh also. You have to find the comedy and tragedy, and the tragedy and comedy as an actor, or you're blocking out a big part of your talent. So 3 Men and a Baby had heart. It moved people. People cried also in that movie. I don't think we achieved the success at that level. We did financially in the sequel. But the sequel was driven by a deal before we had a script, which is a mistake. And I made that mistake a couple times. It was, oh, we need a movie for Christmas. You guys sign on and we'll write something good. Now, my job is to look at a script and say, I think I can fit in here. And if I don't do that, if you don't watch that, and you're getting a lot of shiny objects or cash dangled in front of your face, you can make the mistake of committing that the deal precedes the material. And that's happening a lot in our business and in our feature film business. It ain't good because I want to see audiences flock to movies, and they're not as much anymore.
Do you still go to the movies?
No. Well, I'm pretty busy.
Yeah.
I'm not a comic book movie guy. I did a lot of movies that reviewers called comic books that weren't intended to be early on. It's not a criticism of it. I just can't find stuff that really interests me. When I find a real character-driven movie, I do. But it's also just truck it off to the movies, and I have a lovely life. I get about 10 days at home, probably 2 weeks here. I get to spend 24 hours a day with my wife, my ranch. And that, just being around and being present in that life is a great balance for me. And I just don't want to go to the movies. I watch them. I'm glued to TCM. I like old movies.
What's your favorite?
I'm old.
What's your favorite Western?
Oh, I don't have a favorite. Searchers, right up near the top. It's hard to remember them when you want to remember them. I mean, there's Red River. Yeah.
John Ford. You like
that you do a part John Wayne would be better in. I just mentioned 2 John Wayne movies, a lot of John Ford stuff. But John Wayne, I don't know. He got an Academy Award eventually. Probably I would have voted if I was in the Academy then. I vote now. for Dustin Hoffman, I think, that year. But
The
this
Graduate?
being said, no, I think that was Midnight Cowboy. I'm not sure. Something like that. But here's the deal. If you cast Dustin Hoffman and every actor who's on the scene right now doing leads and is respected in an ensemble movie with John Wayne, who plays the boss? Who's the lead? And that is where leads are always underestimated.
I agree
It should
with you
look easy.
100%.
What I do should look easy. It's not. You don't want to see the work. And I never did with him. I never saw the work.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that part of the lead actor is always underestimated. It is something that is, it is innate charisma matched with
Yeah, there's some
effortless
accidents
talent.
in nature involved in can you do leads. There's also this quality that people, I don't know what it is, but you got to have this quality that people seem to want to go on the ride through your eyes. Now, that's an accident of nature sometimes. It isn't necessarily how you look. It's just, I don't know, you know, that people have wanted to go on that ride through my eyes for a long time. I'm thrilled and honored.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, we're thrilled and honored to have you here. I want to wish you a happy anniversary, your 8th anniversary with Blue Bloods. You have 161st episode or hour of TV on Blue Bloods.
163 hours. I don't know what to do after this. When we do 164, I'm a little sentimental about Magnum, but it's nice. The sky's the limit with Blue Bloods. We ain't tired either of it or from it. So.
Hey guys, it premieres tonight on CBS. Let's hear it for Tom Selleck.